If you control the camera, you control the truth. In a world where reality can be faked, truth becomes power. And the people who protect it matter more than ever. This man didn't just change sports television. Now he's fighting the most dangerous lie of our lifetime. From ESPN innovations to exposing deep fakes, this is Marc Rowley. All right, let's get into it with Marc Rowley. Marc, really good to have you. Appreciate it. You and I have had a little bit of a pre-show discussion outside. Yep. I am intrigued. I'm fascinated by this stuff. I've watched sports my whole life. Obviously, we love sports. You revolutionized sports, believe it or not. I mean, I'm curious to see. When you first worked on the pylon cam and the strike zone cam, just tell us what problem were you initially trying to solve?
So the pylon cam was kind of fun. The initial story started when my son dropped his Legos off of his bunk bed. And I was like, that was kind of weird. He had this little Boba Fett Lego ship and it fell off and it shattered. And he goes, that'd be cool if we had a camera in that, Dad. And I was like, yeah, it would. That'd be really kind of neat. And then they went into the work the next morning and I went over to a gentleman named Ed Placey who runs college football at ESPN. I was like, hey, Ed, I have a question. He said, what? I said, why can't we put cameras in the pylons? He said, well, the officials and that. I'm like, yeah, but why not? And he said, you want to try it? I said, let's do it. And that was about what started. And the thought process was, it gets really annoying when you get a shot where someone's coming right at the end zone and you really can't tell because things like the cart camera or the other cameras, they're at an off angle. When you do off angle, it gives you an axis that doesn't actually show you your perception, depth of perception, can't really see it. So the thought process was, if I can put cameras in the pylon, that'd be great. But the problem was, how do you put multiple cameras in the pylon? So as we started talking, we wanted to figure out what the worst case scenario would be. And ironically, it's Florida in the swamp. At the University of Florida, that stadium will get really, really hot in a hot day. It will get hot and humid. And the pylons are built out of flame retardant foam. So you have to figure out how to put cameras in there, leave them underneath the sun, get that going to get the one shot of the definitive angle. And that was kind of where the thing started spinning out. And it all came from that quick conversation. And then afterwards, I kept thinking, what can I do that will give us that unique angle? And then things kind of went on from there. I can tell you more about that too.
Well yeah. Plus the fact that the pylon is actually the end zone. It's a touchdown. It's a pylon.
It's actually part of the game. Yeah. So
phenomenal.
That was,
what took so long for no offense. I mean, you're brilliant for doing it, but why are we? What year was this? 20.
So the first one we did was 2012. But to be clear, Fox had tested one in the Super Bowl a couple years back. And if you look at it, what ours was different is when you make a product, you have to make a product repeatable. So there's a lot of people that can make things and do it once. But once is not enough. Once, twice, or three times, you're like, oh, this is cool. You want a product that has to be built and put in a game that can live for at least 10 times. After 10 times, someone knows it's something repeatable, I really want it. And that's kind of the nature of a lot of things are gimmicky. We didn't want it to be gimmicky, so we had to figure out how could we give something that was unique. And ironically, it actually came from the Rose Bowl officials. So what we did is we started talking to different groups, and the coaches had different opinions, and we tried to start figuring out where we could go. We took some of the cameras out of like a NASCAR setup because they have really big resistance. And three guys, Dave Casamona, Chris Pond, and Gaines Johnson out of the lab in Florida here, were able to start putting that together and created a 3D printed version and said, I think we can get a couple of shots, which is down the line, up, across, and then back. And as we started talking through it, we went to our director, Chip Dean, and said, hey, what would you like this shot to be? And we started working through the camera shots, and it was a long conversation with where do we want the angle to be, and do we want to point down, straight, flat, or up? Because every time you change the angle, you change what you can actually see for the vision. And as we went through that, he asked me, what was my goal, to your point? And my goal was, I don't like it that we can't tell the truth, that we can't say exactly where it is. Not that we're hiding it, but we've tested chips and balls before. It really doesn't change the flight path. It doesn't change that. You could definitively know right now if a ball's across.
This is fascinating to me.
And we've also looked at like rings of cameras and those things.
There's so many questions.
I can go, so sorry.
No, there's so many questions. I want to get to whether or not the referees were in favor of this or not. But answer this first. You just said it. Chips and balls. I literally asked you outside, well, why don't they put a chip in the ball? And you said they do. And I said, well, what the hell do we need end zone cameras for? What do we need first down markers for? If you have a chip in the ball, you know exactly where the ball is.
So there's a lot of philosophies, and I'm not at the league, so I can't make that statement. I don't know. But one of the things that we've learned through when you test with research is when you start getting really, really specific on details, you remove conversation pieces, you remove debate. So if I could tell you exactly specifically where the ball was in a pile, which you can do because the pylons have what's called RFID chips in them, the technology is there. At that point in time, you remove the ability was it in or out. So people get interested and they watch content when they can debate things. Oh, was it call? Was it in? Was it out? You could know definitively right now, was the strike zone there or not? It's not a technical problem. It's an editorial problem. What that means is if you watch tennis, remember when tennis had the line all of a sudden in or out and it was quick? The debate went down. The idea of the John McEnroes, those things, they're not there because you really can't argue the call anymore.
So
that was part of tennis.
Part of pushing back on the technology is that you remove the argumentative nature of sports.
Exactly. So think about World Cup. Think about actually soccer. One of the guys we worked with created a really cool idea, had a camera that had glass from Bell helicopters, and we put that in the crossbar. And he actually challenged us and said, how could you show that this won't affect it? It's a random story, but I'll tell you. We actually bought a watermelon launcher from a pizza shop in St. Louis, and the watermelon launcher would repeat shooting soccer balls at 60 miles an hour. So we did that and tested and started hitting a crossbar about 70 times to show that it wouldn't change the trajectory of the ball. And even though we could
they were worried that the glass from the camera glass would change the way a ball might
bounce,
angle into the goal or not.
So even though we proved that's not there, it's still the debate of, I'm not sure we want that because there's a debate. So technology could solve all of it, but there's an editorial piece at the leagues that they are really, if they said, hey, we're going to do this, they could do this. But it's more of a debate process. And that's my firm belief because I've seen it and been there.
Did you realize when you're well, let me ask the question I was going to ask you before. Referees in football. We'll get to baseball in a second, but referees in football, did they push back almost like you're questioning their calls or you're clarifying their bad calls?
So what happened was we were talking and we ended up trying to figure out, well, how do we get this done? And the Rose Bowl is really unique. The Rose Bowl is just a wonderful organization. They understand how to do things, and it's that one game a year. So we talked to the officials of the Rose Bowl and said, we'd like to try and figure if we could use this technology. And their concern was, are you going to counteract our call or can we get a chance to review it and see it? And the answer was, well, it's already there. People can already see it. But what we can also do is show you down the line. And one of the officials said, what do you mean down the line? I said, well, the camera can see about 30 to 40 yards down the line. He said, so you can see if a coach is on the sideline. I'm like, well, yeah, we can do that. He goes, so there's definitive proof that the coach has stepped out of the box. I'm like, well, yeah. And he goes, love that. And so it was one of those odd things that that's what they keyed on. And it was just
do that. So you're not even questioning a call on the goal line. You're questioning what the coach.
But it was one of those things because that's one of the struggles that they have, like protecting players in different pieces and managing it. So it's sometimes.
Mark, am I getting this? There are powers that be that decide how much truth and transparency we're actually given for our own viewing pleasure.
So think about it from a different perspective. When you watch a football game or a baseball game or a basketball game, you're watching it through the eyes of the person who's in the truck, who's making the decision. That's usually a two-tandem person of a director and a producer. And they are doing the best job they can with the set of cameras they have available to them. But each fan in the stadium also gets a different view. And a game like football, a game like baseball, there's so many angles, so many things that happen that you kind of limit it. So originally what I wanted to do was create a live an immersive viewpoint type technology where you can have players wear all kinds of buttons and things and figure it out. That becomes really complicated. There's people that are doing it. We have some patents in that space, but ultimately where the truth comes out for people that you can actually transition and understand is, what do I want to see? So yes, there are people that decide what you see. They've been doing it for years. They decide what replay you want. That's called an ISO producer. I've done that role. It's hard to make those calls, but you do the best you can in it. But ultimately, we're going to get to a point in time when we're not watching what the camera output is. We're watching the CGI output, which is now called AI video. But you're going to watch an AI output, which is going to come out of probably a video game engine. And that's really where truth starts to matter a lot.
Your truth matters for me. I'm a very big, heavy gambler. Yep. Truth matters to me when it's 4th and 1. With a tush push, it's a first down given. But if it's not Philadelphia, it's 4th and 1. And it really all comes down to where one of the line judges decides the ball actually stopped when the knee hit. And we've got 12 cameras showing when the knee. It's a good example. This past weekend, there in the Rams game, there was a Ram. I can't remember which Ram it was. His knee was clearly down. He was a foot before the line. And his knee actually slid on the turf, maybe an inch or two. And they gave him a touchdown, and they had the video.
Yeah.
So
if you look at how the ACC has started doing their reviews, it's really cool because the ACC allows you into the officials' conversation. You can hear it and see it in college football. That was a really cool step. You can now hear what the officials are saying, and they're being transparent and showing.
like, hey, dude, I got 400 on the Rams. It's a touchdown.
But so the conversation is those leagues generate a lot of money. If you really, really wanted to know, pressure sensors, small sensors, they're not that complicated.
When do we get there? Are we not moving in the direction where, well, usually your strike zone cam, right? So now every time a ball or strike, you go, oh, and the pitcher's like bullshit, and you can see him mouthing off at the umpire, or the catcher's like, dude, you missed that one, and you get your strike. The zone comes up, and we know it was a ball.
So it's funny. So without going too deep into the names, the company Sportvision was the one that really pushed the strike zone out there, and ESPN had it for a number of years. And then there was a part where some networks could put it off on the right side, if you remember, like it wasn't actually allowed to be overlaid. Contract stuff.
Right.
So you want your best stuff to be there. And then things evolve over time. I was in those contracts, so I can't break into that piece, but I can tell you that once you kind of go through things over time, things become more commoditized and become expected as part of the game. The part about putting a live strike zone in the actual game was always a debate, do we want to do it? It's an editorial choice. So the thing about what I wanted to get to points in time where the fans can make all the choices they want. But fans don't want to work. If I'm watching a game, I want to crack a beer, sit down with my friend, have a conversation with them, ask about his day. I don't want to have to produce the game myself. I want it to be simple and easy. So what we're trying to do when that happened was we were like, hey, let's just give it to them in a way that they can understand it. What you don't understand is there's a person going shoulders, knees, that's the strike zone. So there's still a human setting that. Now, the more AI stuff that are tools that are out there, which is just libraries, are starting to do that now. But the question ultimately comes into the speed at which the accuracy comes in. I've mentioned this before. Speed and delivery of video is really critical. Not a lot of people think about it. Shouldn't have to, but data moves faster than video. Video is just data, but in bigger chunks. So you can get data faster than you can get actual video. And when you're talking about baseball and speed for the strike zone, it really has to be at a level where the fan can quickly understand it and get it. And that's where I like the graphics.
It was not overturnable. The problem is a strike is not overturnable in baseball.
Because
it used to be.
The debate is still there. And that part of it.
Yes, yes. So you're developing the strike zone cam, right? And the rule book says, the official rule book for since baseball started, Naismith.
Yeah.
Is that basketball?
That's basketball.
Basketball. Every bit invented baseball.
You could say Abner Doubleday.
Abner Doubleday.
Yeah, okay.
Abner Doubleday. It used to be, we used to call it tits to knees,
Yeah.
but generally around your armpit.
Your chest to your knees, yeah.
That's not the real strikes. That's not what, in effect, it's probably about your navel to your knee, right? I mean, the strike zone has shrunk over time.
It depends on different batters.
So what do you use on TV?
So there's a person that.
Puts it in there. Physically. Per batter.
Yeah. So now there's different ones where you can do different pieces that come back from the history. Yeah. So again, different companies have moved on. So the company that had invented it, they got purchased with a different company now, and some of the people are still there. It's
every batter. So this person could be a Dodgers fan and make their strike zone a little tighter. Not because it's going to change the call.
There's debates about that, but now there's historical reference. So now the AI triggers are in there. But it's more about how you actually want to track the technology, and so that's what I always tell people. It's somewhat arbitrary until I can say direct sensors here, direct elements, and those aren't hard to put in jerseys.
Right.
And so it's really about what level of truth do you want?
We're going to get there, right? I mean, I'm just a believer in technology over time.
So
people said AI was going to be too much for the population to handle. Now we can't live without ChatGPT or Gemini.
So the way I look at it is, if we really wanted to solve the problem, we could.
Right.
But the desire to solve the problem and the money to solve the problem aren't at the same apex. So sports exists because it's a release for people. That's why sports exist. The more accurate you get, the more it becomes predictable, the less you get that argument. And
tennis ball on the line.
Yeah, so tennis to me is a great example of a sport that was really great, and then they went to high level of accuracy, and then the interest level just dropped. And
because John McEnroe can't argue.
That's my belief. There's a lot of people that hold that belief. People will argue back and forth, but it really, when you can't really debate.
It really is fascinating, because when you think back in the McEnroe days and whatever, people were arguing the calls all the time, left and right. Now you see the little, there it is. It was just a quarter of an inch off the line, and everyone just goes.
So here's the thing they don't tell you: how accurate is that? Oh, it's 99.97. So that means a couple times out of 100 it's wrong. Yeah. So There is no tracking tool that will ever give you 100%.
Well, a couple times out of 1,000.
1,000, yeah. But
it can be wrong. Yeah, it does multiply.
It can be wrong, but
Right.
it's that part of that accuracy. So, for example, switching to what's going on right now is people say, oh, there's an AI detection that can do this, an AI detection can do this. I can tell if it's a deep fake. I can tell with my eyes. The Rubicon's crossed, folks. You will never break that. It's like the atomic bomb has already dropped. When Sora 2 came out and people saw the videos of Sam Altman doing his thing, you're like, wow, he could actually create and be there. All of a sudden, we start realizing things changed. And that's going to be how content continues to move. So for us to get those authenticity pieces, you really have to start thinking about it differently, about when and where it comes from versus trying to detect it.
Dumb question. If I know what I know now from you, right? Remember, folks, Mark was a senior executive producer at ESPN. He knows all the things about this. And we know the betting sites change. You can live bet now, right? You can live bet what the next pitch is going to be.
I would never live bet.
You could live bet whether this is going to be a run play or a pass play, and I noticed that there's a delay. So I'm watching the game, but I'm seeing it says third down on my betting app, but it's only first down on TV, right? So they're seeing it before me. I'm getting the feed late because of whatever reason. You can tell us why.
Yeah,
but what a disadvantage is a bettor.
So here's the way I would look at it.
Because they can change the odds before you see a play.
Well, so think about it from a different perspective. The betting companies don't know what video you're watching. They only know the data they have coming in. And the data is such a small level of data packet, it gets to you like that. It gets to you so quick. So that for a data company to show you the amount of data coming in, that, hey, this is the play, they can do that within a fraction of a second, but the video has to bounce to different sources. If you're watching on a phone, it might be buffered by 15 seconds. They don't know that, they don't control that. So the ability to sync the video and the actual betting up, that's what I would look for, is companies that are doing that and putting them in tandem. If you ever find a delay, I personally wouldn't bet on those.
I use all of them, FanDuel, Hard Rock Bet, they're all delay. You know what you're telling me? I should only bet on sporting events that I'm physically watching in person.
Personally, that's what I would do because I'm there and I can see it. And that's why I think in person is going to be a hell of a lot more interesting to people as they go through it. Or I would only do a bet that is a per quarter bet or something that is a per game bet.
Right.
My worst bet was, I think it was like Duke Hawaii basketball at one game, and I was sitting in the casino in Vegas, and I had 30 grand on a game, and it's like 4 a.m, and I'm like, I've got a problem. I need to adjust this a little bit if I've got this much. And that was like early 2000s. I was like, all right. So I changed my betting philosophy after that. I still do bets. I'm a Lions fan, so I'm still going to bet on them. I went to Virginia Tech.
I'm sorry.
So I know, it's okay.
Sorry about using the Rams Lions example.
No, but and I bet on my Hokies every year to win the national championship. I know, but I'm still going to, every year I put my bet down. James Franklin this year, I'm very excited. I love Brent, and I'm happy that they're going to work it out, but I would be very cautious in the age of technology about where I bet. That doesn't mean that the betting sites are bad or wrong. They just can't control how you're watching it.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean,
that's the dynamic.
I'm not accusing them of any wrongdoing. I just realized that the insane advantage to the mass amount of people who are betting who aren't at the stadium itself. They have the advantage to change. Literally, the ball can be in the air. A football can be in the air, and they may see a receiver wide open, and they pull the bet down. They don't change the odds; they just pull it down, and that is the little gray area where look. Winning and losing in gambling is this tiny, 5%, right? 5% is the difference.
I have a number of friends that work at the sports gambling entities, really good people that are really trying their hard and want to put truth in everything they do. So from my perspective, I look at it saying they try to control what they can control. And from that perspective of, hey, I know I can give you this data that's right, but one of the things you see is the video and the data are split separate. Yep. So to me, that's where I would go back to a league or to an entity and say,
explain it. You explain it to me outside, but tell us why there's a delay.
So think about it from this perspective. If you're watching baseball, when the strike zone comes in, the actual graphic has to be less than 0.7 of a second at 60 hertz because the crack of the bat will be different. What that means is you'll start seeing a delay and you'll hear it, and then you know it's wrong. Your eyes can't pick it up. You can't see it. And video gamers will tell you, I need to stream at 144 hertz. The human eye really can't tell past 90 or 100 hertz what the issues are and what the frames is. Everyone believes they can. I'm not going to argue with you, but science and technology tells you you can't. So that's okay. You can figure it out, but people like bigger numbers. In sports, the data actually moves so quickly that video will buffer and go through pieces that you have to look through because it has to bounce. It used to bounce a lot more. It used to be from a satellite here. DirecTV used to be faster than the cable companies because they have to go through all these old systems. But now with fiber, it's better. In the last 20 years, it's become a lot better. But it's just a system that how you transmit.
So you're watching a play, football, baseball, whatever. It goes from stadium to what? Tell us how.
So, for example, right now, a lot of systems are fibered. So where you're at the stadium, a lot of stadiums have fiber. So if you remember years back in Wall Street, people were like, hey, if I can run fiber from Chicago to New York, I can get the systems faster, I can get data faster. That's effectively what happens with a lot of video now. So it'll be fibered from a main head end, say, let's Chicago. Chicago will fiber back to people in Bristol, Connecticut to get it. Or they might
ESPN, so Chicago to ESPN.
Or it'll be like in LA for the DirecTV Center is out there. So they'll get it for the fiber. And then at that point in time, it either comes fiber to you via like a Comcast or one of those companies, or it'll actually be a signal that gets bounced up to a satellite back down to you. But for you to get it on your phone, you're going to have to get it through, for example, maybe it's a Wi-Fi. Well, that has to go through your home router. So every step slows things down. Now, it's only a fraction of a second, but each fraction starts adding things. That's where companies like Cisco and those are trying to speed up that process. So the switches are slower, but you can't fight math. Like math is what it is. So the steps that are there and the pieces are there. What you want to figure out is speed matters to you. If you're a bettor, you want to make sure you're getting the actual fastest net return you can. So you want to know what your delay is back and forth, and you can test your speed information, those pieces. But when you start also wondering is your video buffering, and am I watching a delay? So people are like, wait a minute, I just saw that 10 seconds ago. I saw this. You see that a lot, like on airplane videos, those kind of things.
Or some bars will have the same game on, and 2 or 3 seconds or a second sometimes.
Yeah, it really
delayed on one of them.
It really depends on the technology you're using to watch it. So I tell you, if you're watching on your phone, make sure you're on a really good network.
Mark, I feel the same way about what you're just saying about delays that I do about I want to make sure that ball was actually a first down or not.
Yeah, and like I said, the technology exists.
Yeah.
And this
is fascinating.
It's
technology,
not complicated
folks,
to go do it.
The technology exists to know if it was a first down or a touchdown or not. It's there, but they don't want us to have it because they want us to argue if it was a first down or a touchdown.
That's my belief. I don't want to push
it. It makes sense.
I've
totally
been in the
makes
rooms
sense.
and talked to people and said, can we just do this? And part of it is you got to get all the owners to agree, get everyone to agree. And with the pylon cam, it took us a long time. I mean,
was there pushback anywhere?
Yeah, it was. There was a lot of, the biggest pushback we got, there were 2 pieces that were a challenge. One of them was player liability. Well, you're going to put a camera in the field of play. That's not a sky cam that comes down. This is an actual piece of electronics in the field of play. How do you manage liability? I'll get to that in a second. And the second pushback is, do we really want this kind of an angle in there? Will it really improve or will it detract from the game perspective? So we had to prove both. We did the Rose Bowl test. We actually did tests in Frisco at, it was like a D3 championship game, cold as hell there. Anyway, it was a good game, one of those North Dakota State games. And we had some really good shots, and we were like, hey, this is cool. And then we got one shot where a kid dove across the pylon. And that was awesome, because now the director's like, I want that shot.
Right.
Like, perfect. Okay, we got it. Right. So we solved one, but we had just kind of hacked that together. We'd cut a pylon, put it in, and we did it when it was cold, so we knew the pylon would potentially melt if we didn't figure it out. So we went over to a gentleman named Neil Gilman, who actually runs Gilman. That's the name that makes the pylons. And we sat and talked to him and had a conversation like, could we actually do this? And the answer was, why don't we find a way to put your core inside our foam? And that's when we realized our core is going to get hot. So we had a relationship with the people at MIT, went and had a conversation with them about how do you do supercooling connected in computers? What can we do? And came up with this cool little helix model where you can actually cool it, and we had a vent fan for inside the pylon, and then we just had to figure out how can we keep it below around 80 degrees at best inside. So the fan will kick and go higher and lower. This is the original versions. Now it's kind of moved on. There's a company, C360, those guys, they're running the pylon cam now. I'm no longer involved in that. They do a great job. I love what they're doing. They're actually part of the Cosm brand, like the big, cool stadium bar setups. They're pretty amazing. But if you look at that setup, we were just trying to figure out how do we make it efficient, then we can answer the safety question. So Neil was great. He let us into the factory. We worked through everything. We put that core inside. He says, you know what we're going to have to do? We're going to have to pour the core in. I said, what do you mean? He goes, we're going to fit it in, put it in a mold, and make the pylon around it. I'm like, well, then how do we fix it? He goes, yeah, you cut it out, we'll do a new one. I'm like, that easy? He goes, that easy? I'm like, all right, well, we still have liability. And he's like, look, we'll protect our product. We'll make sure it works. So together we worked on the liability, and then we got agreement to do 2 games. But how we got those 2 games agreement for Monday Night Football was a lot of fun. We figured the one group we have to work with is the groundskeepers. So how do you get the groundskeepers to agree?
Because you had the wire or at the time?
So we tried Wi-Fi, but Wi-Fi is not going to work really well because signal, and the Wi-Fi was not good.
So you run a wire through the pylon.
So the first one
grass.
was we run a wire through the ground. And I'll make you laugh. Like imagine like crochet needles, like in Dallas. That's what we had to use because Dallas. You had to vacuum. You had to vacuum it up, and you had to weave it under.
Carpet.
Yeah, it's a carpet. So anyway, so
hold on before you get there. These wires. Is there like a technology box somewhere right off?
A small little box that takes it, and then it goes back into the truck. And each truck can see 4 camera shots per pylon. And in some games we had. Jim Dove ran, so we had 4 in each end zone, so 4 times 4, pretty messy cameras. Anyway, all looking for that one really cool shot, but when you get the cool shot, it's awesome. Anyway, so we're trying to figure out how do we get everything to work right and make sure the player safety is there. We get the groundskeeper guys in together, and we brought them to Disney in Orlando, and we put them on the field, and we said, guys, let's talk about this. And it was the first 8 groundskeepers from the Monday Night Football schedule, and they were not really in love with the ideas. And so we pitched a lot of things to them. And finally,
everyone hates change.
They were nice, though, but they're like, I just don't like it. So I'm tell you what, why don't we put you guys in a room and we'll leave? So we put them in the lab and we walked out. And they were there for about 2 hours. The guy came out and said, I've got an idea what we're going to do. And they told us everything. We said, great. It was the same idea we had, but they came up with it.
They needed to come up with it.
They came up with it. So now
that's what you do with, no offense, you're an executive producer. That's what you do with producers as a host. I got this great idea, Mr. Producer. They usually get, let me think about it. They come back like, I like your idea, but here's what we're going to do. It's just fucking same exactly. Thank you. Wow, let's do it.
So what was cool was, the first game we did was Cleveland. And the guy in Cleveland was like, you know what, I got a better idea. And he has this little blade, and he just starts slicing the turf. He goes, let's just lay it in there.
Yeah.
And we did, and that was the first one we had a shot, and it was really neat. And
is this the liability you're concerned about?
Well, no, that was the first shot to get in was, are we going to create an issue where someone could trip? So that was securing that. And then in the second game we did was in Tampa. And that's where the gentleman from
the NFL?
Yeah, NFL game. It's a preseason game. Came down and said, I need to see the pylon get hit in a game.
Right.
And he says, that's what will determine if we will say it's okay.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, well, let me see. And we had just set it up, and there's a player, I won't say his name, I do know exactly what it was. And he asked what we were doing. I said, we're trying to put this in and set it up. And I said, we need to make sure it'll withstand a collision. He goes, okay. Cocked his foot back and kicked it.
Wait, what year is this?
It was 2013, 2014.
Warren Sapp.
No, but I won't say his name. And he literally just kicked it, and it flies and lands like, oh. And he walks over.
Wait, it disengaged from the cord, from the wire.
It's a little release, and and then he just goes over and he stomps it once and goes, see if that works. And I was like, oh man. But it was cool, so I picked it up and started shaking it. I'm like, actually, it's pretty good. And I started shaking it because it was all sealed. And the NFL guy grabs the pylon from me and goes, let me see. He starts shaking it. It sounds like a box of Legos. He goes, nothing came out. I'm like, no, that's how we designed it. He goes, this is great. I'm like, well, I just lost a $20,000 pylon. Okay. So we put a new one, set it in, and I was pretty bummed. And I was like, man, I can't believe that happened. And so I walked back off the field, and I'm just kind of like sidelines, just like, all right, well, what's going to happen?
Who pays for this technology? Is it the ESPNs of the world, or is it the NFL?
No, that was the ESPN of the world, but I'll tell you how it went. So as I walked back in, he pulled me aside and says, that's awesome. You guys are good for the season. I was like, really? He said, yeah, that was great. He says, it survived. I'll go back to New York. We'll get it all set. Really appreciate what you're doing. So I'm thinking we totally failed because that happened. And he's like, you did exactly what we wanted. And then it started getting used in the season. And I believe it was Plaxico Burress did the catch where he drug his toes, and the call was reversed based on the shot. So what I usually tell people, I do a lot of startups, I advise a lot of startups, and everyone says, I built a game-changing product. I can actually say we did build a game-changing product because it actually literally changed the course of the game. And then it grew, and other companies started doing it as well. And we talked to the NFL, and they're like, this is really good for the game. We need this technology out there. And that's where I give the NFL a lot of credit, saying this is really cool. We want this out there. But it took time. Things that are new are hard for people sometimes. When Fox put the scoreboard bug in, people thought it was a bad idea. Now you can't live without it. When ESPN put the 1st and 10 line in, when Freddie did that with Jet, you thought it was bad, but after a couple of games, you can't live without it.
Can't live without it.
So it's those things that you just have to decide in your gut that I'm going to go with it. Those are the liability things we were concerned about. But
and player liability you were talking.
Player liability about player injury, but when you can prove that,
when you can fall on it and
when you can kick it, fall on it, and nothing's going to happen. And to date, that's where it's been.
Yeah, no, it's
because
phenomenal.
it was a lot of the security we tried to figure out. And one of the fun things we did is our director Chip was great. He goes, I need to see a little orange in the frame. Like, no, we can no. I want the orange in the frame. I'm like, yeah, but I can cut it. He goes, no, I want the orange in the frame.
Gives you
just
reference.
a little fuzzy because
Gives
it gives that
you a reference. Yeah, sure.
What people don't know, I'll give you this last piece is, we had to figure out how to put power. So there was a gentleman at a company in Maryland named Guy. He was great. He goes, I can put power over the top camera's signal, but I'm going to change it to a 720p camera from 1080, which no one's ever going to notice. That just lowers the frame rate a bit, but allowed us to put power over that thing. Such a cool innovation. No one's ever going to know as a fan, but I wanted to mention that because when you get a really cool team and people start having ideas, they start figuring out things and they get excited about it. As a leader, you don't have to push it because now they understand if we can have that really cool, authentic moment and people trust that we're giving you that best shot, that's going to be really cool. So now, no matter what I do, I can't escape the pylon camera. It is what it is. I go to do a conversation, someone will mention it, it'll pop up, and I get texts every year from friends like, hey, I remember that shot. I'm like, there was 40 people that did that. There's a bunch of, yes, okay, fine, it was me, but it really was a huge group of people. And ESPN, to your point, they paid for it out of the technology budget. It was really cool.
They may not be broadcasting some of the games that are using the technology.
Different companies and eventually made different pieces. So the question is, why don't you patent it? Why don't you fight? Why don't you do that? I have a bunch of patents. There's some patents I have that ESPN owns, but some are my own company now. But sometimes there's things, what's better for the game?
For the game, yeah. No, it's
and that's an example of you could fight about it, but that's better for the game.
All right, I'm going to go on a limb. I'll probably be dead when it happens. But the chip in the football, deciding whether it's a touchdown or first down, will be in play.
I would love to do it. If someone says they can't do it, call me.
Yeah.
I'm not hard to get a hold of.
So if there are chips in the footballs right now, why? Why are they there?
So you get spin rotation, you get a lot of that information, you get all those next gen stats, those things. You get a lot of that. There's a couple of different companies that can track different things.
Amazon Web Services, AWS does all that. They're using the chip in the football technology. They've got almost to the inch how far a pass was, and
so there's optical tracking, and then there's sensor tracking, and then there's interpretive tracking. If you want to think about things that tracked, so optical tracking is a series of cameras in the area that track what's happening. Sensor tracking is device to device, where am I at and where I locate. You end up creating a three-dimensional map. There's a mathematician, Stefan is his name. He's out of ETH in Zurich, and they started creating 3D models of sporting events. Maybe 2008 range. And they created a system called Libero Vision, which was this really cool way to switch camera angles and still keep it in reference. So the first one to really do it, they did a great job. We used it on Monday Night Football. A bunch of other networks started using it. And then you started realizing, wait, I can use the math to start predict things. I give those guys a lot of credit for taking something that we all kind of wanted to do, but breaking it down to the math level. If you look at a sports stadium, it's actually really simple. They don't really change. So the movement in the actual field of arena, you can eliminate a lot of the haze out of it, and you can start figuring out where the movement's going. And then once you have patterns, when people say AI is in charge of stuff, AI can do this.
It's just pattern recognition.
AI is pattern recognition.
That's all it is.
And prediction.
Billions upon billions of
data points,
data that they process into patterns.
So
by the way, you want to know something?
Fire away.
ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, pattern recognition. You can ask them; they will tell you. If you ask them, how does an AI bot that has no human emotion, how are they so good at understanding human emotion? It's just billions upon billions of examples, just
and by
over
the way,
and over and over.
Football tells you the patterns, they tell you the rules, and then they limit the scope. So you have a set of rules that things have to go by, and you'll say, oh, this guy's going to run faster than that guy. No one's going to run faster than 25 miles an hour. So we know that, so you can limit that scope. So if you start getting objects moving in space, you can track the objects and the balls. It's not terribly complicated. It's more of a question of what is the benefit, and a lot of that for a long time has been sponsor driven. So if I can get a sponsor, if I can get AT&T to pay for it, if I can get Verizon to pay for it, then I'll do that. That's usually where the broadcasters have been. My hope is with, like, for example, the new NBA deal and those kind of deals, that it moves, where does the fan want to go? Because the fan's perspective, especially for the gamblers, that stuff is crucial. So it's not that it can't be done. It's the will to say, okay, I want to do it. And if there is somebody at one of the leagues that says, I want to do it.
Mark, I don't know that basketball has, a fraction of an inch issue that baseball and football do. Like, is your toe on the line for three, yes or no? It's pretty easy to see or not, right?
It's not totally easy to see. So we've done a lot of, actually, we did right before I retired. We did a 3-point line testing where we had an arc. That was a really cool. Bennett Salvatore was the official that worked with us. Love the guy; he's great. And we did this little thing where the red line would pop up on the 3-point line. Is it a 3? Is it not a 3? That was
so live on television.
Live on television.
So
yeah.
before the shot's taken, it's a 3.
As the shot left, it would be 3 or not.
And why don't they use that?
Because it seemed somewhat intrusive to the game. So it's the sense of how you process it, right? So is that
I guess the referee's got his hand up as the shot's being taken.
So,
anyway,
but here's the thing. So I did this test. The Under Armour team was great, and we used FLIR infrared technology. Yeah. And I could actually shoot on the court, and I could tell you specifically, is that shoe touching the top of the court? And now you have, for example, the glass courts that is up in Orlando, and those guys, the ASP floor guys. There's a lot of things that are happening there where you could start predicting all of it, but how much truth do you want to introduce
all of it
into the game?
I want all of it.
Am
I a freak that I want?
No,
I want complete truth and transparency.
You're not.
To
but every time you introduce that, you remove senses of debate. And I'm a firm believer that the reason why sports is successsul is because there's a debate.
No, everything's more successful when you can argue something.
When you can argue something.
Cable television was built on
So
who's right, who's wrong. There's no right or wrong here because we don't have a line. Let's go to the videotape, find out who's right.
So for example, like the esports leagues and NBA 2K League, they could tell you exactly because it's all run in computer simulation. We can put real life in a computer simulation.
What about XFL? Why don't they try and see if it? I mean, they got nothing to lose.
I haven't talked to Jason in a while about it, but I can ask.
I mean,
I know the guy that does it. I just haven't talked to him.
It would be fascinating to see if it downgrades the viewing experience because of knowing exactly where the first down is.
Some of that is the money. So, for example, if you want us to do that, I'm going to tell you I need a $3 million window to start because I need to bring my engineers on. I got to give them an 18-month runway. I need them to get working. And the answer is they'll come back and say, I want to do it for $300,000.
You patent it?
You can patent it, but there's a whole
when
lot
the
of
NFL realizes they want it, you sell it to them?
Well, so think about it from a different perspective. So there's a lot of patents that are out there. One of the most interesting patents that's out there, I think it's the Curry patent, which has a two-dimensional piece. What we patented, it's called it's a perspective way of looking at it. So it's an occlusion patent. So right now, when you're looking at something, if the camera's looking this angle, you don't know what's behind it. If you have 2 cameras here, if you have a 3rd camera here, there's still a little bit that's occluded. We patented the live redraw of that. So anyone who's doing a live redraw of that, that's our patent. It's not very.
Can I tell you what that is? You have a car. My car. If I'm backing up, all of a sudden I can see my full car from the top.
Yep.
It's a recreation.
Exactly. So, but that's slightly different. In a broadcast live perspective, we're talking about actually like the threads of a person's jersey, that kind of stuff. You're seeing an estimation of the car. So that's the split difference on patenting. But the idea of doing an occlusion patent, that's where we tried to focus because that's the meat of a 3D representation of a game. Now that's where I started getting really concerned about, hey, if I can do that and I can put it through a CGI engine, it's funny. We named the company Live CGI that I'm doing right now. Had I named it Live AI, people would have responded differently. But
you can rename it.
But here's the thing. CGI is AI video. That's the same thing. Computer-generated images is AI video. Yeah. So our thought process was, as we were creating this, we had to figure out, how do I authenticate that this is real? So one of the parts of the patent we put in was, if you live stream everything and live every channel and put it on blockchain, it's now immutable. Which is
we're getting into. This is fascinating, though, and I want the folks to understand. Marc is, like I said, senior executive producer at ESPN, but also now doing a business which I think is fascinating and so timely. Talk to us about exactly what this technology.
I will, but I'll walk you through the transition because I watched a little bit of your show and how you talk about what males need to do and how we think and process and how we need to kind of get that edge and where we're going. I was kind of stuck. I watched a video in 2014 called "Humans Need Not Apply." Scared the hell out of me. And it was a video that said, think about it this way. Did they say that more cars would mean more jobs for horses? No. More automation will mean less jobs for people. And then you start going, wow, what does that mean? And as a producer, I'm thinking, well, when people can decide what content they want, what is my job? What do I need to do? And how do I know what's authentic? So that was 2014. I started getting I didn't know what to do and where I would go. So I said, let me get to a point where I can exit this company. And I love the ESPN. I love the people there. Still enjoy it a lot. I have a lot of really good friends, but I needed to transition out. So contract done. I had no real locked in. I said I was going to resign. The HR people said, you really can't resign. You could retire. And I'm like, Okay. So I was 42 years old and I retired. And everyone's like, how can you walk away from this great job and you're spending all this money? I went to all these Super Bowls and all these games. I'm like, it's not that. I want to do something different. I want to be part of something unique.
This is such the you're nailing it.
So I took the risk.
It wasn't fulfilling anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I had at that point in time. It's going to sound pumping on my chest, but not. I had earned 5 Emmys. I'd done a lot of awards. My name was in a lot of things. You could read my stuff. There wasn't more I was really going to do at ESPN, and it was my time to step off and let other people get in the show. And Kevin and Brad and Spike and all those guys, they've done such an amazing job, and I'm so happy to cheer them on. I feel really good about that. I get a call from a guy who says, hey, I met this guy. He says he knew you, and he's doing great. He's now a manager and got this team. I'm like, that makes me happy because now those people I got to work with are doing great. And the reason that I finally made the switch, it was in Orlando. It was Camping World Stadium. It was the Pro Bowl game. And I'm sitting up on top of the light stands with a friend of mine, Jim Munn, and we're testing a laser system on the goal line. And I hear If I Had a Boat come playing across the speaker, and it's just me in the stadium. And Jim, and I'm like, I got to get out of it. I got to do something different in my life. So I go down, the game's getting ready to start, and I walked up to Chris Berman and I said, hey, Boom, I think I'm going to retire. And he goes, really? I said, yeah. And I can't do a Berman voice. He goes, you should talk to that guy over there. And I looked and I'm like, Jerome? He goes, yeah. So it was Jerome Bettis. So I go over to see Bus and I'm like, hey, I think I'm going to retire. He goes, you should do it. But before you do it, go talk to that guy. And I'm like, okay. And the next guy is Emmett Smith. So I'm like, this is my life, but this is surreal. So I go talk to Emmett and I'm like, I'm retired. He goes, before you do that, make sure you know everybody and you talk to everybody. I said, great. He goes, I'm introduced to the guy that I talked to when I retired. I'm like, cool. Now I'm not thinking properly, and I get to talk to Jerry Jones. In the course of making my decision, I hadn't talked to my wife yet about it. We're still going through it, a little trouble for that. But I went and talked to Jerry, and he's like, hey, do what you have fun with. He said, I have fun doing this. People hate on me for stuff, but go have fun. I should have gotten his number. I should have, there's a lot of things I should have done, but I was like, you know what, you're right. I went back into the truck, called my wife and said, I think I'm done. And then we agreed on that, and that was set. And then I called my dad, and my dad said, well, how do you know when you go back to work? I said, Dad, it's really simple. If I ever catch a fish that's bigger than me, I'll go back to work. That was a dumb idea because 3 weeks later I went down to the Keys and I caught a 6'4" sailfish. So I started doing stuff again. So it was really that transition of my life of saying, hey, I need to get something more out of life, and it's okay to walk away and take a risk. So I bet on myself, and luckily I got people that invested in me and went through it. And now what we're doing is so true and so fun, because we're about authenticity and
let's
we're
talk
about
about
that content.
Sorry for the delay. No. This is a fascinating transition because it's the same thing, really. Yeah. I mean, you were bringing truth to sports, truth to a call, truth to did you really see it the right way or did you not? And now you realize there's an opportunity maybe to bring truth to something really, really important. Everything you watch and see on
so
handheld
I'm going to
video.
scare you a little bit. So let's play this out. You're driving in a car. You got a dash cam on you. You pull up to an intersection, person in front of you backs into you and crunches your car. You talk to your insurance company and they say they have a video that says you hit them. That's not true. I've got my dash cam. I can show up. My dash cam's got all the security on it. I can prove it's my dash cam video. You go to court. Well, now things have changed. Because AI video is out there, because CGI video is out there, there's going to be a moment in time really quickly, if it hasn't already happened, where that person's going to come in. They're going to have an expert say that their video is truth. And now it's up to the judge or the jury to decide who's right. You, who don't have an expert with you, with your video, or them, and they have an expert. You know their video is false. But what's going to happen, and it will happen really quickly, is they're going to be the one that wins. Not only that, now you're going to be charged with perjury. That's a very real scenario that we're looking at because of AI video. You're going to have scenarios where people are going to say, this police officer did this, that person did this, and now you're debating it. That's the same problem in live sports. So I don't get into that side of everything. I just try to focus on what's real, what's not. And I hate to tell you this, but you will never know anymore if the video you're watching is real. That's already gone. What you can only prove is the time that video was sent to a live source and the person or the entity who created it. And that's where our patent is. That's where we look at is as you're sending that in, we take small hashes of that. It's a small little protocol that says, okay, this was what was sent, and this is where it went to. And that starts to create what's called provenance. And provenance is how you track a document. If you ever buy a house, what's your title, right? If you ever buy a car, where's your car gone? That kind of provenance tracking, that's really critical. So we're part of the team that's introducing that. There's a lot of that now starting to happen, but kids, I got a 16-year-old son. He doesn't trust what he watches online. He's not going to. And other kids aren't either. What we're trying to do is introduce a level of trust and authenticity, which is we know when something happens. And for live sports, that is critical.
Yeah, and
it's critical
and
to know when that
others
happens.
too, though. I mean, this
For every medium, exactly.
Yeah, so
live sports to me is
everything we do, every video that's taken of us, and there's tons of them.
So on your gambling example, so here's what's going to happen in the next year and a half. Is you're going to be watching a game, and when you watch a game, you're watching what's called a video player. And in that video player, whether you're on your phone, whether you're on your browser, it's taking in video, and it's taking in bits of data, and it's translating that bits of data. There's going to be a point on there that is a small system that checks in a blockchain that says, is this the actual video that was sent from the location? Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Oops, something's different. Now I have to change. That's the point in time where the user can go, oh, I don't.
Almost like a watermark?
No, see, a watermark is imprinted and stuck. A watermark doesn't carry truth with it. A watermark is just a brand. A watermark doesn't mean anything. You need something to reference an actual third-party database, and that's why blockchain is cool, because the people on the blockchain that validate it, they don't know what the content is. They don't care. So I had a conversation with a news producer who used to work in sports, and I was having the conversation with them about, hey, the reason why people go to X, the reason why they go to all these other websites is because they want to see the live feed. They want to know what's happening. They want to see that actual video. And their answer was, well, yeah, but then we put our packages together and that's what we show. And I'm like, yeah, you're editing the packages and you're changing. That's like, when I make a highlight, I'm showing you what I think they want. He goes, well, yeah, but that's the news. I'm like, nah, it's not. That's your vision of it. So when you make a Green Bay Packers versus a Lions highlight, I'm like, yeah, I'm heavy on the Lions. He's like, is there a problem with that? I'm like, well, I try to do my best, but I'm a homer. Like I'm going to do that. That's why I never got Lions highlights when I was at ESPN. I never got Virginia Tech highlights because they knew that I would probably lean that way. So you try to get people as impartial as they can, but when you're watching the edited version, if you're not watching the live feed, it becomes really scary. So for gamblers, you're going to want that.
So your technology company puts video up on blockchain to keep from deep fake hackers to play with it, because it'll show that it's been, here's the real, it's sitting here on the blockchain. Here's what you're seeing from them.
It's already happened in the NBA where guys have said things at a press conference, and then someone's taken a deep fake of that and said, look what this person said. Yeah. Well, they can't chase that. It's so hard to chase it. So what we're saying is, all the deep fake technology will always chase the actual moment. There's no deep fake technology that will get it perfect. However, if you're live streaming from that point and you know from that camera this is the output, then you know that's where it is. Now people will say, well, someone could feed a fake deep fake video live. You're right, they can. But they're going to feed a version of the game that is deep fake. It's real. Now you're starting to get to a point where
you get to the point where you're just looking at actual time.
Yeah,
like just time, historical time. Like this was deep faked real fast, but it was a day after it actually happened.
And as time gets better, it'll be fractions of a second after. But it's critical for the gamblers.
Amazing. They'll be able to deep fake. They take a video of someone saying something and deep fake it.
I can already show you versions coming out of China where it's happening right now. So one of the problems is betting parlors in China. And I'm not a political person. I'm not going to that. But this is a real issue where you're watching a time delay of a feed. So they're getting prop bets, and you're actually seeing the NBA game when they're watching it is 2 minutes late. This problem existed back in 2010, 2014. Like, this is not a new problem. And that's one of the reasons, like, the league is really pushing hard to make things better and try to figure things out, but you can't control certain scenarios. So for gamblers, I want you to push. I want to know, is that the actual raw feed?
Who does, like, I would venture to guess that if referees were smart, it's like the old when they were telling you how to self-checkout at Walmart and Walgreens. And I was like, don't you guys understand you're putting yourself out of business, out of a job, right? Because you'll do it. People will do it themselves. I could see umpires and referees saying, we don't want the technology because you don't really need an umpire or referee anymore, technically. Because
So here's a way of looking at it. If we follow the rules to a T for every game, there'd be holding on every play. Right?
Correct.
There would be.
Oh, yeah.
And
right.
There'd be something wrong in every play.
Right.
So the human intervention is what makes the game unique and fun. So part of my belief is that logic that you want human intervention to keep it interesting, because if we follow the rules to the letter, like you follow every law, I drove 66, now you got a ticket. So it's that kind of, there's a little bit of what do we want to do in humanity, and I don't want us to lose that. So that's what scares me when people say, hey, I want to know exactly. Like, you can know, but there might be some problems. So yeah, so that's what we do.
Tell us where we can find you, your company, your technology.
I live in Lake Oswego, Oregon, a little south of Portland. I in New York a lot, do a lot of stuff, but our company is called Live CGI, and we do a lot of really cool, unique things. We have a division that's called Taffy Labs, but the big products we're rolling out now is called Via DPL, which is a Via Distributed Public Ledger. That's viadpl.com. And then you could also find us on
Spell it. Via.
VIA.
Yeah.
D is in Denver, P is in Peter, and L is in Larry, via distributedpublicledger.com. And the second piece of our product is called Trusted Ace. So the first is that blockchain element that secures it, and the second is the check. And here's the way we looked at it. We want people to use their product for free. Now people say, well, how do you make money as a company? You got to win trust by having free product out there. How we make money as a company is on licensing models that happen when high volumes are done.
AI.
Well,
it's a similar concept.
Similar concept, but yeah, it's the same piece. Like use it for free, and then as you start using more volume of it, we'll go to that. That's a business model that makes sense, but we want people not to have to think about the money to think about is it true. That's the barrier that I don't like. So Via DPL is what we're rolling out now to businesses. We'll be talking more about it in April timeframe. We'll go into a lot more business there. We actually raised some money, got some investors that came in. People are really excited. So it's a lot of fun to come from a deep tech technology. Everyone's like, oh, you're AI. Like there's a lot of AI companies that go this way. We're AI resilient. So we're not dependent on AI. We're that layer of truth that is past that piece. And while people are trying to figure out the problem, there's a different way to do it. So if you combine both of them together, now you're going to get that authenticity that you need. So that's how we started our career, and that's what I focus on trying to do. So thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it.
Well, your life, this whole technology is literally the edge.
This is my life. Yeah, my life is. It's funny because when I saw the name of the podcast, I'm like, man, when you run a company, you're on the edge. And Elon Musk said it great. It's like it's chewing glass every day and waking up and deciding to take another spoonful. Yeah. Because you never know what's going to happen and how you're going to do it. But focus on being truthful, being authentic. That's critical. And that's why I was really happy.
We wish you luck and love everything you've done. Thank
you so much.
Marc
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed this episode of The Edge. If you did, hit subscribe. We appreciate your support.